We're about to dive into one of the most unbelievable survival stories you will ever hear. It's the true story of a man named Mauro Prosperi, who literally vanished in the middle of a race, surrounded by people, in one of the most brutal places on the entire planet. So let's just get right to the heart of it. The question is so simple, but the answer is just wild. How does a highly trained, peak fitness athlete just, poof, disappear without a single trace? Okay, here's the first piece of this crazy puzzle, the location. This didn't happen somewhere easy. It happened in one of the most hostile environments imaginable, the Sahara Desert. And here's the detail that makes this whole thing so baffling. He wasn't out there by himself. He vanished during an ultra-marathon with 133 other competitors running the exact same course. It makes no sense. All right, let's set the stage. The guy at the center of this whole mystery is Mauro Prosperi, a 38-year-old Italian police officer. But look, he wasn't just any cop, he was an elite pentathlete. We're talking fencing, running, the whole deal. This guy's training forged a spirit in him that just refused to quit. Ever. So the challenge he signed up for? The Marathon des Sables, which means the Marathon of the Sands. And trust me, it's not just a race. It's a legendary, brutal test of human will, famous for being one of the toughest foot races on the entire planet. And the rules, oh man, the rules are just punishing. You have to cover 251 kilometers in only 7 days, and you're carrying everything, your food, your gear, all of it. The organizers only give you water at checkpoints. But the most important rule, the one that changed everything for Mauro, is that you have to find your own way. You navigate yourself. So, the race kicked off on April 10th, 1994, and for the first 3 days, everything was going according to plan. Mauro and his buddy knocked out 96 kilometers over some pretty gnarly terrain. But then, the desert decided to change the rules. Day 4, this is when it all went wrong. This was the longest, meanest stage of the whole race, 85 kilometers long. The sun was just scorching, hitting 46 degrees Celsius. Mauro, feeling good, decided to push the pace and left his friend behind. And that's exactly when the desert just unleashed on him. A violent sandstorm, like a terrifying wall of sand and wind, came out of nowhere and just swallowed everything. Now, just try to put yourself in his shoes. Mauro knew that if he stopped moving, he could literally be buried alive. So what did he do? He kept running. For 8 agonizing hours, he pushed on through this blinding storm, completely convinced he was still on the right path. He wasn't. By the time that storm finally passed, he was miles off course and completely, utterly lost. The next morning, day 5, the brutal reality of his situation just slammed into him. He climbed this massive sand dune, looked around, and all he saw, in every single direction, was an endless ocean of sand. No people, no tracks, absolutely nothing. His water was almost gone. So his first act of survival was just one of pure desperation. He had to drink his own urine. Then, a glimmer of hope. He hears it, the sound of a helicopter. He grabs his flare gun, fires his one and only signal, and just watches as the pilot, totally blinded by the sun, flies right on by, unseen. On the 6th day, totally delirious from the heat, he sees something on the horizon, a building. Turns out it's an abandoned shrine. He stumbles toward it, just praying for water, for people, for anything. And what he found was just silence. He planted a little Italian flag on the roof, just a tiny, desperate signal in this vast, empty world. And this became the brutal new reality of his life. What did he need? Water. What did he find? Bats hanging from the ceiling. So, driven by pure instinct, he drank their blood. He needed food. He caught lizards and insects. The desert was keeping him alive, but just barely. And then a second rescue plane flew overhead without spotting him. And that was it. His spirit finally broke. This was his 7th day lost in the Sahara. The loneliness, the repeated false hope, it was just crushing him. He became totally convinced that he was going to die in that desert. He decided he wasn't going to wait for the desert to kill him slowly. He found a piece of charcoal and wrote a final message to his wife and his family. A goodbye from the middle of nowhere. And then he did the unthinkable. He took out his pocket knife and he cut his wrists. He just lay down in the darkness of that shrine, closed his eyes, and waited for the end to come. But this is where the story takes its most unbelievable turn. He waited and waited for the end. And the end just never came. I mean, you can't make this up. It was a staggering, almost cruel irony. The very thing that was killing him, the extreme dehydration, was also the thing that saved him. His blood had become so thick from lack of water that it clotted his wounds almost instantly. Death itself had turned him away. So when he woke up the next morning, Mauro saw everything differently. He thought, if I was not meant to die, then I am meant to live. This wasn't an ending, it was a sign. He bandaged himself up, walked out of that shrine with a brand new resolve, and decided that if he was going to be saved, he was going to be the one to do it. The physical toll, though, was just staggering. In a little over a week, he had completely wasted away, losing 15 kilograms. I mean, think about that. He was surviving on raw snakes and bitter juice from plant roots, only moving in the slightly cooler air of the morning and evening. And then, on the 9th day, a sign of life, goat droppings. He followed the trail, and that's when he saw them. A small herd, and with them, a young Tuareg girl. His first human contact in over a week. He ran towards her, but his skeletal, sun-scorched appearance was so terrifying that she just screamed and ran away. Thankfully, the girl came back, but with her grandmother. These nomads gave him shelter, they gave him goat's milk. They eventually got him to a nearby military camp where, get this, he was initially arrested as a spy. But once they figured out who he was, the truth of his incredible journey finally came out. And the sheer scale of his journey was just mind-blowing. He had wandered 291 kilometers off course. He'd even crossed the border from Morocco into Algeria without having a clue. Back in Italy, his family had already held his funeral. Can you imagine the phone call he made home? It sparked a national celebration. But listen, this might be the most incredible part of the whole story. You would think after an experience that brutal, an experience that nearly killed him, he would never set foot in a desert again, right? You would be wrong. Mauro Prosperi went back to the Sahara and completed the Marathon des Sables 6 more times. So what's the big takeaway here? I mean, Mauro's story is an insane testament to the limits of human endurance, for sure. But it's also about this strange, powerful connection he built with the very thing that tried to kill him. As he put it himself, the Sahara, which wanted to take his life, is what ended up teaching him the true meaning of it.